And we know duality oneness. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So guys, I think we're already on the YouTube. And now we will do this to get off of that. This meeting is being streamed live. Yay. And then we're going to record it. Hey guys, welcome to our little podcast.
Hey.
Today's a good day.
Today's a good day.
Today's a really good day. Why? Because it's today. And I say it's a really good day. And then guess what? I'm always right. That's awesome. So I'm Lori and this is Gina. And we still don't have a name for this podcast, but we talk about M-Free. M-Free is the model that we coach with within Empowered Abundance. And basically it says we're 100% human and 100% spirit. And there are natural laws of our human and there are natural laws of our spirit. And when we integrate those natural laws of the both, we live fully alive. Here's the rub. Those laws are opposite, which means we really have to know thyself. And really, I think like the more we start doing things out in real life out there for people to listen to, I'm getting clearer and clearer on like what it is really, what's the core of what we do. And we've said this so many times in the past. And then I think it's a kind of a flittering thing because I think, it can't really be that. But guys, guess what? This is all, know thyself. Know thyself in your spirit, know thyself in thy human, and then know thyself integrated, because how Gina's going to integrate her human and her spirit will be different than how I integrate my human and my spirit, because we came to do different things on this planet. But it's still the integrating of the law of the human and the law of the spirit, just in different proportions, which is why Gina is magnificent as Gina and I'm magnificent as Lori, yet we're both the same in the essence of what makes us magnificent. So that's kind of what we talk about and what we teach here in this sweet, amazing container. So Gina wants to talk about duality today.
Yeah.
So Gina, what do you want to talk about duality?
I honestly don't know, but as we look at, so we have 12 practices and 36 principles. And as Lori was just describing on our principles, we've got our human and we've got our spirit, and we've separated a lot of different aspects of the law so people can really understand the differences between the human and the spirit. Because a lot of times, I didn't know this before I was offered this 100% human, 100% spirit. Like a lot of times the issue is when I'm trying to apply my laws of the spirit to the human or my laws of the human to the spirit, and then it feels all crunchy and sucky.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was like something different. So now there is. And so in those 36 principles, we've got duality, and we've got on the human side, duality lives in our human, and same. Oneness. I was listening to Same Different today on a recording, but oneness. And we were talking and coaching earlier today about duality, and it was just like, ping, we had said something. And I don't remember the exact words that were said, but as I think about duality, it's actually a really, really big one, because in our human with duality, and when we talk about our phases, which is adding complication, duality is this idea of like also right and wrong in our human, good, bad. Where in our spirit, everything's one. And so that's where a lot of, at least as I've gone through my process, I've had to look at my human duality, and where when I'm identifying things as good, bad, right, wrong, I had to do some remembering. I always want to say undoing, but I'm working on understanding that differently. So remembering that all of it has the same value, even if I'm classifying it as good, bad, right, or wrong. Because duality to me, I think, going through my process was really rooted in judgment.
How so?
That if something was right, then it was good. If it was wrong, it was bad. And if it was wrong, it didn't have value. And I had a lot of judgment over wrongness, especially in other people. Yeah, especially in other people. And I had friends that honestly would say, like, oh, yeah, they're doing that thing wrong or that thing's bad, but they didn't judge the person behind it. I was unable to separate that.
I get that.
So when I look at
Same, guys, same.
When I look at duality, it's just a really powerful one to understand. Yes, my human will separate things. It will create contrast, good, bad, black, white. Well, black, white is another one of ours, so I don't want to confuse it, but it will create opposites of things. But really, go ahead.
Do they always have to be opposites?
No.
Okay, cool. What's the value of duality? Let's start with, because so often when we're in the law, right? Because the law is duality and oneness, right? But if we don't really like dig into like, why is duality valuable? What's the value of duality? Then we're trying to undo what we think is wrong with it, instead of focusing on what the value of it is. And then it makes a lot of the undoing or remembering easier, because now we're looking at it from the value of it and undoing the wrongness, instead of trying to figure out how to realign the wrongness. Yes. So what's the value of duality? Go super simple.
I was going.
Gina's like, I'm gonna go esoteric as fuck. Yeah, go super simple.
I'm honestly having a really hard time right now. I'm like, all of them are kind of a mesh for me. The separate, like I can think of the value of separateness, and I can think about the value of differentness, but I'm having a hard time with the value of duality. So I think that's why I needed to talk about this one today.
Cool. So, well, let's just define what is duality.
That there are at least two options, two things available.
Yeah. Two things available.
Well, that gives me choice.
Yeah.
That's a value of duality.
That's awesome. And that's huge. But there's something actually, like, again, you guys, one of the things about me was Gina's answer correct? Yes. But is that what Gina's really asking for, to seek out the value of it? No, which is why she totally gave an appropriate answer. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. And because there's something actually in this 7 seconds, something really cool that Gina wants to bring to the table, that is the value of a value, not the value, a value of duality that we overlook when we don't realize it, right? And again, you guys, as soon as I say this, right, she's going to go, oh, well, yeah, of course. But if we were aware of the value of it, and that it is the law on purpose for a reason, then we wouldn't be struggling, right? Which is the human condition, right? We struggle because our cognitive wants to partake in the knowing of what our body already knows, or what our Holy Spirit or our intuition and our subconscious already knows, right? So anyway, back to the question. Go super surface, even more surface than that.
This isn't more surface, but the thing that's popping up is like, I have the left and right hemispheres of my brain, which both.
That's so not surface.
Create.
That is not even remotely surface. Are you guys ready?
Tell me.
Are you ready? This right here, this is duality. Oh, we couldn't be having a conversation without duality. And we couldn't be presenting this without duality. And the simplicity of the juiciness of duality is simply like relationship. Because if there's only one, there's no relationship, which is why, again, like the different facets of how M3 plays out is, well, then if there's only one me, then how do I have a relationship? Well, there's technically, like, there's my subconscious, and there's my superconscious, and there's my human, and there's my spirit, and there's lots of different parts of me, right? And so really, though, duality, the simplest form of the value of duality is relationship. You and me sitting here right now, having so much fun talking about duality.
Yeah, I really was attributing that to like, in my head, I've separated things so much, like separate. That's the value of separateness is relationship, as opposed to duality, which I almost think of as more in my reality, how I'm separating things. But as we were actually talking, like duality, reality, it's like, ooh, I get to play in lots of different realities with duality. Yeah, there's more than one.
Yeah, because duality, even though we say duality, it's just like Gina was saying, it's more than two, right? Or actually, technically, it's more than one, which is two, which we think of dual like two. Yes, that's true. And
I'm gonna look up the actual definition because now I'm like, really, what is?
Let's look up the actual definition. But going back to, well, Gina's looking it up, going back to even the sense of duality being my human and my spirit, right? And Gina was alluding to that with the right side of my hemisphere and the left side of my hemisphere. And I have two eyes and like I have two arms and I have two legs, like that's duality. So yeah, there is this element of two, and there is this aspect that two is very much the start of more than one, right? Because if it's only one, which is the spirit side of us, everything is connected, right? There's a whole like oneness in philosophy or religion, or like a practice. We're practicing oneness, like we're all connected. Yes. And however, if I live too much in the oneness of me, I actually become narcissistic, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I just mean that as a label of somebody that only can think about themselves. Now what's Gina's is mine, because there's too much oneness, right? So now I'm groping Gina and she's like, don't touch me like that. I'm like, no, we're all one, it's okay, right? And I know that what I'm saying right now seems so averse from when we're teaching oneness, but we're teaching how things work, not a philosophy. Or, I mean, yes, this is a philosophy, but I'm saying like, yes, oneness can be a philosophy and there's something very valuable about that. However, when we recognize it as a law and we swing the pendulum too far on the oneness side, we lose the fact that like codependency is too much oneness, right? Narcissism, somebody who can't see like other people's feelings, is somebody who lives too much in the oneness, because they think that my feelings are your feelings and your feelings are my feelings, and there's no separation. And so that's why those relationships are unhealthy, because they've swung the pendulum too far over. And this is one of the most important things that Jean and I talk about, because it's like we're still like rooting and grounding ourselves in this, because we come from a place that we think that spirit is good and our human is less than, when in reality, when we look at the law, they're both just as valuable. And it doesn't matter what side of the pendulum we swing too far on. Ooh, I said something really sexy today. Let me see if I can remember. It was something, because somebody was talking about how they were looking at their human as insignificant. And we talk about how when we look at our human as insignificant, it takes all the weight of performance off of us. But she had gotten to a point where she needed to not see the insignificance of that freed her up. She needed to see the significance of her human, right? And so I said, in it, I'm going to totally screw it up. What did I say? By itself, oh, something is valuable. Something in itself is valuable, but by itself, no, because we don't want to use valuable. Anyway, screw it. Anyway, the whole point was, by itself, something can be unhealthy. In itself, it's oneness in itself, healthy. Oneness by itself, not healthy. That's what I want to say. But it came out way sexier earlier. But that's the whole point. Anyway, duality, go.
Oh, it really is the quality or state of having two different or opposite parts or elements.
And isn't that our human and our spirit? Opposite. I love that it says opposite in the definition of duality. I was unaware.
Yeah. Even as we talk a lot of times of, the whole human and spirit in and of itself is duality. That's like
Yeah.
mind effery right there.
Yet the goal is the two becoming one because we want to integrate.
Yeah. Well, I just keep thinking too of just how linked it is to choice, the duality of things.
How
Like,
so?
do I want hot water or cold water for my hot tea? Do I want hot or cold for my bath? Do I want, do I want to climb high or take a low path today? What experience do I want to have, and how the idea of having more than one thing creates so much choice and experience in my reality? And that's a really big value to me.
Yeah.
Because my human, though my spirit wants the experience, my human is the one that gets to do the experiencing. So
through our human.
Yeah.
Because without our human, there is no experience because there's only one.
Yeah.
Which goes right back to the value of duality.
Yeah.
Right? Because without the human, the spirit is just one. So there is no experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so the integration of our human in our spirit, but apart from our spirit, the human can't even know an experience. It experiences basically without the experience. Right? Kind of like I don't know, somebody who goes to an amazing concert and yet maybe they fell asleep and they were at the concert. They technically experienced the concert, but they didn't experience it. Only we would refer to that as being unaware, right? Being asleep in our consciousness.
I did that once with Neil Diamond.
Really?
Yeah.
Neil? You fell asleep during Neil?
Yeah, I was really young. My dad took me probably when I was like 8. Wasn't.
You probably got to meet him, shook his hand, he gave you a hug, and you're like, what? Neil who?
Yeah. So I understand that example.
Yeah.
I'm not hung up, but I want to do a little more talking about what you just said. Like you're really, sexy way of saying it was earlier, but okay. So you said oneness in itself. What was the word?
So, and I said valuable, and that's why I pull that back but I guess we actually could say valuable and not valuable. But healthier and unhealthy feels a lot yummier. So contributory. So
beneficial.
Oneness or duality in itself, both of them, super yummy.
Because that's when we're separating them, right? Like the idea of this and the idea of this as value
in themselves. Awesome.
Yeah. I want to say no problem.
By themselves.
So problem. And so when you're saying by themselves, we often talk about like the pendulum. So when we're talking
no. Okay. Yes, thank you for pointing that out, because on the pendulum, there's still two sides. They're still both available on the pendulum.
Oh, so when we think that the coin is like glued to the ground and it's only heads, like that way.
Yes, but let's go really deep. It goes back to the wrongness or the not value of the other side. Right? Okay. So if I, for example, say, no, oneness is the answer. It's all about oneness. Duality bad, oneness good. I'm in trouble. Because now somebody walks in and says, oh, oneness, we're all one. I'm going to feel out your boobies and it's okay because it's all, I didn't actually touch her boobs. All of a sudden I'm like, I wonder on the camera if it looked like I didn't actually touch her boobs, guys. That would be on camera. No, okay. Sorry, I digress. So the point is we can, okay. So I love this example because yay, oneness, duality. And then I walk in and I don't understand. I'm not a healthy, mature person understanding what they mean by oneness. So I walk in and I'm like, oh, it's all oneness. Okay, I'll have your money, I'll touch your body, I'll invade your space, right? And somebody goes, wait a minute, no, you can't do that here. That's not what we mean. Okay, cool. But if you don't have a cognitive understanding that you're not actually saying to duality, though you're saying to duality, you don't really mean that. Well, then now I can't mature in my awareness of the whole thing because you thought that I was going to know what you know. Does that make sense? But if I don't cognitively understand, this is what we mean by oneness. And this is the message that we want to give about oneness. It's not duality is wrong, because then I actually eliminate duality as valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I run into problems where people are like, oh, yes, I love oneness. Yeah. Right. And now I have to go in and go, no, that's not what we meant. But if I have a cognitive understanding, now I'm not giving messages like to duality. Yes?
Yeah. And I applying that, just thinking about my journey of learning a lot of different philosophies along the way, I feel like a lot of things, the way I heard them was oneness is good, duality is bad. Like you talked about earlier, spirit is good, human is bad. And this whole idea of the rejection of the human and how much of my time I spent trying to transcend, trying to become that part of oneness, trying to be very spiritual. And this rejection of so much of the value of this human I'm here to be.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, again, one of my biggest ahas as we started unpacking these principles at retreat was just like, oh my gosh, both. Mm-hmm. It's not one or the other, it's both. And how cool that is. And it cognitively at first is a little challenging to understand because they are opposite. How can I be one and duality at the same time? Yet we can, and it's possible. Mm-hmm. We can appreciate the limitations of the human and the expansiveness and unlimited potential of the spirit together, which creates power, but in their separateness by themselves, with one side not being an option anymore, then it's the rejection of one or the other, which doesn't allow for me to have fullness.
100%, which is that fullness is like the absence of suffering.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. I love what you mentioned about like, we can have this and this. I remember having a conversation with somebody and he was like, well, I don't believe that anything is possible. Well, if you don't believe that anything is possible, then anything that you're trying to create is possibly not possible. Right. And so when I was talking to him about anything is possible, he's like, okay, but I'll never play in the NBA. And I was like, but has anybody ever played in the NBA? And he's like, yeah. And I said, cool. So it is possible to play in the NBA. Yes. Okay. But it might not be possible for you. And this is part of where when I live in the duality of, okay, anything is possible, but I didn't come to the planet to do everything. Now I actually appreciate my limitations because now I can just focus on the cool things that I did come to the planet for. And I'm not over here hoping and wishing that I was in the NBA because anything is possible. And it must mean that I'm a piece of shit or I don't deserve it or whatever, when actually that's not why you came to the planet. Right. And so living in this integration of both my human and my spirit, the epitome of the duality, mm-hmm. my human and my spirit as one, now I can believe that anything is possible and then figure out, well, what's possible for me? What did I come to the planet to make possible, make manifest what's possible in what's fun for me, and still let other people go play in the NBA and not find wrongness with it. And really, it all just really boils down to the
it does.
Which is that the in itself, right? Because by itself and in itself,
And I know, okay, so I know we talked about the pendulum already, but something kind of came in as an image with the pendulum. So we talk a lot about swinging between the human and the spirit, human and the spirit. And I'm almost imagining like when we find wrongness with the opposite side of us. So oneness is right, duality is wrong. Like it's like this concrete wall or something that goes up between the swing. So each time that thing hits, it actually doesn't get to experience the fullness of the spirit either, because it's just hitting the wall and there's no swing between. You never get to lick the middle, you never get to taste the integration, but you also don't get the fullness of the oneness either.
And yes, and the other thing is, then it will always be an effort to try to experience the oneness.
Yeah, because you're trying to get like momentum that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it really, like, this is the efforting in life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It is where the two become one that ease really starts to happen, right? It's when you talk about people in their flow, right? And they're like, I just can't not make money. I just can't not make the shot. I just can't not like meet new people. I just like, they're in this flow. And that really is the epitome, which they're not trying to do anything. It's just happening, right? And so often, a lot of people who come to our container are people who have played in like the manifestation world and recognized the toil in it, right? The diminishing law of return of manifestation, right? When we first learn it and we're aligning our subconscious and our conscious, and we're practicing focus, and we're building our dreams, and we're figuring all those things out, and it's so awesome and sexy, until we hit a point where, well, why can't I manifest like I used to? Or why can't I keep manifesting? Because the bigger thing you want to manifest, if you've been manifesting through effort, then you'll need more effort, which isn't easeful, right? And so when we switch into that non-wrongness of any of it, now it's all easy. And that's the difference between manifesting through ease and manifesting through our effort. And do we manifest with ease when we first start manifesting? Well, most people, because there's not the resistance of the progression into more, right? Did that make sense? That last thing I said? Okay. When I first learned the law of attraction, and I recognized that my human has power, right? That I can focus on something and manifest it. I manifest because I've probably found the wrongness of my human for so long that now I'm honoring my human, which is why the thing that honors my human is allowing the manifestation, right? Mm-hmm. But then if I think about that as good, and I'm manifesting and I'm trying to manifest what's good, well, now there's going to be this diminishing law of return being, but then you'll have to keep efforting because you got to keep making good things happen, because you don't want the bad things and you don't want the wrong things. And now you know how powerful you are. One little thought about debt is going to make the mound of debt come to you because you're so powerful, right? But then it starts not manifesting, right? Even what you want, because you've become more aware of who you are, even if you're not aware of what you're aware of, right? Which is why it's so cool, the model that we teach, because it shows you what there is to be aware of. Know thyself, know thy human self, know thy spirit self, and know how they integrate. And so then the ease of life can come in. But without understanding like how this all works, the ease of life is more difficult to find, because you're not understanding the how it works. And so you're still over there efforting to try to manifest the right thing, instead of letting it all be allowed and then naturally just manifesting based on why you came to the planet.
Yeah. Our technical term for that is humaning the shit out of it, or spiriting the shit out.
Which we do both.
We do both.
We do both.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's part of what Gina mentioned earlier with, then we get into the phases of consciousness, right? Because we're made up of a human side and a spirit side. Yet consciousness is all there is. Yet there's 4 phases of consciousness for a human. And so when we look at the progression of how all of this plays together, it's based on where am I at in my level of consciousness to be aware of my human or my spirit. And we come from a place where we're only, what's available is my human, understanding that my human is responsible for stuff, right? Then we have this awareness of the spirit side of us, and we think that that's the good part of us because this just my human alone, right? But that was the only consciousness I had, was the awareness of my human alone, right? And then I wake up into the spirit part and we think, oh my gosh, and this is good because that was so yucky in itself, right? And we think this is good. And that's that whole law of diminishing return, because now we're trying to get more good, more good, more good, but we're excluding the other half of us, which is that human half that we perceive as the bad half. But it's two sides to one coin, which then goes back to what you were saying with there's no experience of the fullness if I'm negating anything.
Yeah.
Which is, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And the tree of life is that understanding of all of it being valuable.
Mm-hmm.
All of it being valuable. Every bit of it being valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else you want to say about that?
No, I'm excited we talked about it. I think it's going to continue to bring more awarenesses up as the week goes on. So
Cool.
yeah, I didn't know what we needed to say about duality, but there it was, y'all.
There was. Are we done then?
I think we're done.
I think we're done today. Duality.
Lick it.
Lick it. Lick the duality. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. And yeah, thanks for joining our no named podcast.